always with the butter knife.
Angry.
I'm going to use my trusted bottle opener.
I feel things. Bad things.
Welcome back to Enter the Abyss.
With your two favorite hosts.
Two favorite hosts in the entire world. Took a week off for Cleet's birthday that he didn't want me to talk about, but happy belated birthday, Cleet.
Another year older.
And another year not wiser.
Yeah, less.
Less wise.
I watched the new Mortal Kombat trailer.
Oh, for the movie?
Yeah, dude, that thing was sweet.
It's going to be amazing. Rated R. Fatalities and blood everywhere.
I was trying to figure it out because Sub-Zero was at the end, and then the blood came up and he froze it and stabbed the guy. Was that Scorpion he stabbed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, so they fight each other.
Scorpion, buddy.
Because I know at the end, he goes, "Get over here." And I didn't know that that was
You didn't know that was Scorpion? That's literally
No, I knew. No,
Scorpion
I'm saying I
says.
didn't know it was continuous. That was the fight with Sub-Zero. Everyone knows that.
It's going to be I think it's going to be the end fight. It's just going to be the one that everyone's there to see.
Who would win, Sub-Zero or Scorpion?
I don't know. I also want to know who's going to win versus Godzilla and King Kong.
I'm going to pick Scorpion and Godzilla.
Oh, you think Godzilla?
Oh, yeah.
So the directors did come out and say, because people are like, it's just going to be a draw. They're going to end up working together to fight some bigger monster.
Mothra.
No, the director came out and said, no, there will be one winner. One of these will fall.
One's going to die cruelly.
It's just vicious, bloody.
Oh, my God. He fucking impaled him on a skyscraper?
That's what's going to start Mortal Kombat. But yeah, Mortal Kombat looks amazing.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. I haven't been that excited to see a movie in a long time, so very, very excited. Reminds me of the Nintendo when I first played that game back in the day.
I just want to know what you're going to rate it as out of your 5 stars. I feel like you're going to text me after it was stupid, 1 star.
I'm probably going to rate it higher than Street Fighter, the movie. You remember that?
There's a Street Fighter movie?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm guessing it's not good.
It's probably the worst video game adaptation I've ever seen. It was so bad.
Was it directed by Shyamalan?
No.
We have to bring Shyamalan up every episode. It's
Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. So, brand new beer.
So this one is called Uplifted. It's a Scottish style ale, and I've already tasted it. I don't think it's half bad.
Yeah, and it's from Talisman Brewing Company. I had a big swig too, and it's not bad. We've had Scottish ale and Scotch ale in the past, and they've just been horrible. But this is actually palpable.
Yeah, it's not horrible. It's not one where you gotta do 3 gulps and then it's okay.
It's not horrible. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's just a good beer to drink to talk about some pretty effed up shiz.
Brr.
So, just a bit of a plug here, a bit of a trigger warning, at least on my topic. It's very, very dark. I know that we usually like to point out the fun side of things and poke fun and do some jokes to lighten the load a little bit. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult to do so. Just a heads up, it does involve children, which is not a good thing. The man that I'm going to cover is a very horrible man. He's actually been requested by some of our viewers, and it's been a guy I wanted to cover for a while. Just trigger warning. There is some children stuff involved. I'm going to try and censor some of it just because some of the stuff I read was pretty awful, and I don't believe in that stuff. So anyway, but what are you talking about, Cleet? I heard you have a game for me?
Yeah, we're going to start a new series on here, and it's Do You Believe It's True?
Oh, yeah. I was so excited the last time we played that game where you're like, pick your crime.
Yeah, it was good. It was nice. So this is going to be a healthy dose of skepticism to stories that are claimed to be true on the internet.
Good. So let's sandwich this thing because I want to have some fun and humor, and then I'll get my dark shit out of the way, and then we'll end with some more.
Did you just say we need to make a turd sandwich?
A turd sandwich.
Good.
That's
bad,
where this
good.
guy belongs.
Funny, gross, funny. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, I get you.
All right. Let's jump into the first one. So again, these are just random true stories, supposedly from the internet.
You just told me they're all true.
Supposedly.
Yeah. Allegedly.
We are going to be the skeptics or maybe believers. So let's go into story number 1. I would call this story creepy more than scary. But my mom's friend had a small house and lived alone.
False.
Did she live with the whole neighborhood?
Yeah, she had the whole neighborhood in that house.
She noticed weird things going on. A batch of soup depleting faster than usual. What? Missing eggs. Damp towels in the hamper, and she hadn't used any extra dishes in the dishwasher. And they're just showing up in there. Would that really frustrate you? You didn't have any roommates. You You just did the dishes, and you go out in the sink and it's just full of dirty dishes.
I feel like I do that to myself.
You're like, son of a bitch.
Dude, it's legitimately laundry and dishes. They never fucking end. You can get it done and you sit down and watch TV and then there's a whole new pile. You're like, where the fuck did that come from?
That would be the worst kind of ghost. They're like rude. You know, they're not trying to scare you. They're just trying to give you extra work. Like, you seriously? Dirty dishes while I was sleeping?
If you had a ghost that did the dishes, I'm like, sure, dude, I won't even charge you rent. You can spook me all you want. At least you're happy.
So I kind of already figure where the story's going to go. I mean, I think that we could put 2 and 2 together to decide, like, hey, where's my fucking soup going? I just made a giant batch of soup. Now it's gone. I don't know. Let's keep going. So this went on for months. She thought she had just she thought she was just being forgetful. One day, she heard some thumping around her attic. Man, how many times have we heard this story? And went to investigate. She found some makeshift living quarters, a small radio, hot plate, and sleeping bag, pillow, food wrappers, etc.
Etc. is what I'm most curious about.
There was a Panasonic TV on there. Jesus.
A ham radio.
I thought I heard cops in the middle of the night. The theme song.
Yeah, I got it.
She called the cops, who came to keep an eye on the place. They ended up catching a homeless man climbing a tree, trying to sneak into her attic window. He'd been doing this almost daily. He would wait for her to go to work, then go downstairs and help himself to food and amenities. The funny part about the story is they got to know each other throughout the ordeal, and the guy was actually very respectful. Just down on his luck. She didn't press charges. Instead, she let him move in. Oh, okay.
Oh, man.
Helped him get a job, and he lived in her attic until he got back on his feet. Creepy shit with a happy ending. It's kind of... So, do you think it's true?
I don't know.
That is the big question.
It's crazy enough just to be true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say yes, it's true.
It's kind of weird. It's like, hey, you gotta live in my attic. Like, I don't know where they were living, but it must have been a pretty mild climate if it's true.
Right.
Because, like, there's no... I mean,
you couldn't do it here in Utah.
It'd be either cold or hot, man. Like, it'd be horrible.
Unless they're in California, it's just a cool 70 all fucking year long.
I feel like this... I mean, I've heard this, like, variation of the story a lot. I'll probably edge on the fact that it could be true. I'm leaning towards true.
Wait, do you not know if they're true or false?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you knew, and I was, like, answering, like, you were the game show host, and I was guessing.
It's up to us and our viewers to decide.
Oh, so do we find out?
No, I don't.
Wait, we have no fucking idea.
I think that we can assume it's true if we think so.
See, this game is a whole new twist to me now, because I thought that you were going to tell me, like, yeah, it is true, or no, it's false. So we have no idea. I think it's true. Cleet thinks it's true. What do you think?
All right, let's jump into the next one. My friend's boss bought an Audi A4 convertible.
Ooh.
Those are pretty cool. My brother drove an Audi at one point.
I want an Audi R8. That's my dream car.
Yeah, you know, I don't really
it's
like
not
cars
practical, but still.
Yeah.
If I had money just to get rid of, I'd get rid of it on that.
I'd buy a Tesla and just so happen to run over Elon Musk. Wouldn't that be a headline?
Justice.
Not to hurt him, it'd just be funny.
Oh, not to hurt him. You're like,
Yeah, electric.
That's electric, bro.
That's so dumb.
That's so stupid.
All right. So back when they were new and interesting, so I thought Audis were already interesting.
Oh.
One of the talking points was the pop-up roll hoops that were hidden unless you rolled it. I have no idea what they're talking about.
The fuck is that?
I don't know. A few months after buying it, he goes to test the roll hoops out, and he lost control and skidded down a steep bank about 10 meters or 35 feet deep. So he's probably dead, I'm guessing.
Most likely. True or false, he is dead.
He died. Haha, that's it.
God damn.
That guy's cold. He did not like his boss. I'm kidding. So the roll hoops did their job, and he survived with just cuts and scratches from the bushes he plowed through. Okay. Yes.
False.
The car ended up the right way up, and he got out, walked back up to the bank to the side of the road, then got the phone to call the police to report the accident. While he was standing there, a driver from a car that had seen the accident came to speak with him. Approaching from behind, the other driver asked if he was okay. My friend's boss turned around to reply and dropped dead. His neck had been fractured, but was in one piece right up until he turned his head, in which it severed his spinal cord.
Oh my God.
That'd be the worst way to go. You're just like, yeah, I'm fine. Then you just turn your head and you're dead. You're dead.
Again, it's one of those things that it's just so ridiculous that it has to be true. But then again, I think that it's just...
I've heard that, though, with neck injuries. Like, if you turn your head.
Neck and back injuries,
Yeah.
dude. You don't play with those things.
I'm going to go with true.
I think I'll go true as well.
Is it going to be 2 truths and a lie? Let's do one more.
Let's do it.
Okay. A female friend in college disappeared from a party at another university in the city town 25-ish miles north of our school. She arrived with another friend who I believed had driven. At some point, she split off to play cornhole or something and was later inexplicably gone.
Inexplicably.
I love that word, right? It's a nice word.
I'm just still baffled, Cleet, because there's some words that you say without any practice. You just zing them out there like you're just this historian, and then it comes to a walkout balcony, and you fucking lose your mind.
Yeah, it's like a glitch in the Matrix, you know? You just go out there and...
Like, I kind of want... I think everybody who listens wants to hear you say walkout balcony.
I can say it now.
Do it.
Walk out balcony.
Yeah,
See?
you did it.
I got it.
You've been practicing. I know you have. Every night before you go to bed, you're like,
hours every night.
Out balcony.
Every time I mess it up, I just slap myself. You son of a bitch.
No wonder your face is a little red today.
It always
I
is.
wondered what's going on.
It's always so red. Okay, I guess people are calling him. So the phone calls when they're trying to call her go to voicemail. Police were called, but she was just simply missing. About 10 days.
That's a scary noise, Cleet. Don't do that again. This is actually really good. I don't mind this.
What?
This beer.
This is really good. I really enjoy it too. About 10 days later, she was found by a homeless man who witnessed her crawling up to a bus. Oh, you got to bring that up. Now I'm fucking up.
I'm in your head, Cleet.
To a bus stop in the city, begging for help. She'd broken a leg and an arm and was in very bad shape. All right, we're going back to the party. Right. So at the quite large party, she had her drink secretly drugged and was then led off by a group of men into their vehicle. She was taken to an apartment where she was drugged, I guess again, repeatedly raped, and locked into a small room in between with a bucket to use as a bathroom. My God.
I was going to say, like, when you emphasize, like, secretly drugged, does anyone like drugging not in secret? Like, hey, I drugged your drink. Here,
there's like 10 pills at the bottom.
Don't mind the foam and the residual, what the fuck do you call it? Fuck. God damn it.
I put in an Alka-Seltzer in your drink.
Yeah, it's just an Alka-Seltzer. Don't mind the fizz.
I hope you don't mind. It helps with stomach aches.
You were kind of cramping. You were kind of holding your stomach. I thought you had a tummy ache, so that seltzer's going to help.
So at one point, after being injected with heroin and raped, she somehow managed to convince one of her captors to allow her to use the actual bathroom to clean herself up. This bathroom had a small window to the outside, and with the shower running, she managed to squeeze out and fell from the 3rd story into a large hedge bush. From there, she crawled from the apartment complex to the road and bus stop, where the homeless man saw her and called the police. Many cars stopped upon seeing her, making her captives unable to recapture her. 3 men were later arrested for the crime after surveillance cameras allowed police to locate the apartment which she jumped from. She returned to our university almost 2 years later, graduated, and became a nurse. She was obviously traumatized, never partied again, carried a gun everywhere she could, and somehow moved on with her life. It was a terrifying tale none of us ever forgot. She was an 18-year-old freshman when the incident happened. That's crazy.
I myself am going to say false because I hope it's not true. It's a wishful false that I hope that no one... Here's the thing. It's a very sensitive subject, I understand. No one has to go through that. I'm going to say false because I don't want to believe she had to go through that. So I'm going to say false.
Yeah.
2 truths and a lie.
M. Night Shyamalan did this. William Neeson would be her dad. But she just got out scot-free.
Good luck.
He's like, oh, no, she just got found. Oh, I guess my skill set isn't needed.
I'll just go home now. Later.
The end. Everyone in the movie theater looks pissed.
Total M. Night Shyamalan. The end credits roll, and everyone's like, what the fuck was that shit? No, it's just you who's upset.
All right, so you want to jump into your little fucked up story of clowns and children?
Oh my God, you just had to make it neat. It's not. It's not good.
I have no idea what he is covering.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I feel kind of bad. Had I known you were going to do like some cool game show, I would have put this one off to another one. Because I'm totally going to dampen the mood here.
I'll lift him up afterwards.
Yeah, we'll lift up. Okay, so Cleet, have you heard of Albert Fish?
No.
Ugh, you're a lucky man.
I'm about to hear him today.
So, do you remember, I think it was our St. Patrick's Day episode when we called that number and we got that really creepy voicemail that's like, leave a message for the gray man. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was a long time ago, like our 5th or 6th episode.
Vaguely, yes.
Okay, so we called it, we recorded the voicemail, and then you texted it saying, you better fucking subscribe to our channel.
Oh, yeah, I talked some shit.
Yeah, so we talked shit, and we were like, oh, it's kind of funny. So I texted that night, too, and then literally, it was like September 18th, so a while ago, at 1:55, I got a text from the number, and it said, remember that weird phone number people found on the ground in New Jersey? Guess what? And there's a link, and the link is https://thebasementla.com. That doesn't sound like a good link. Now, when I clicked on it at the time, it took you to this like virtual underground online escape room. It was really weird, had all these really crazy images. You click on it now, I'll show you, Cleet. It goes to page not found. So they completely removed the page. It's not active anymore.
Okay.
So I guess what had happened was like there's this lady on TikTok who called the number and she got down to it. So it was like this whole virtual online escape room. And apparently this girl was like being captured and people were trying to help her escape. It was all fake, I guess, and people thought it was real. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because on the voicemail it says, leave a message for the gray man. Well, Albert Fish, one of his nicknames was the Gray Man.
Oh.
So you were supposed to text the number Albert Fish, and it would give you a link, and then you'd start this whole scavenger hunt. So we did it wrong. We were just assholes like, subscribe to our show. So
idiot.
we fucked up. So that's the reason I'm bringing that back up. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back. I believe it's our St. Patrick's Day episode. It's a good episode anyway. If you haven't listened to it, you should.
The Hellfire Club.
And we also made a promise that if it ever got 500 views, we would drink whiskey and melted butter. So there's, more stipulation for you to go back and listen to it.
Was it only 500?
So anyway, Albert Fish is who I'm going to be talking about. And again, as I said, trigger warning, it involves children. There's some racially charged statements on here as well. He was just not a good man. I couldn't put that any other way. He was just a beast, and there is a circle in hell that he is rotting in for the rest of his life.
Buckle up, everyone. It's gonna be a ride.
So, Albert Fish, his real name was Hamilton Howard Albert Fish. It's a really long name. Albert Fish was known by many names, including the Gray Man, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac, and the Boogeyman, just to name a few. So, how does someone go about getting that many fucking nicknames?
He killed a lot of people.
Yeah. He really did. Albert was an American serial killer, child rapist, and cannibal. Fish was born on May 19th, 1870 in Washington, D.C. His father was named Randall Fish and his mother Ellen Fish. Fish's father was of English ancestry, where his mother was Scots-Irish-American. The crazy thing is, Albert's father was a whopping 43 years older than his mother. It's a huge age gap. 43 years older than his mother. When you're 43, she's just being born. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, man.
It's disgusting when you put it that way. Even crazier, Albert's father was 75 years old when Albert was born. Can you have a kid at 75 years old?
He must have had some powerful stuff.
I don't think it ever stops, man. I don't think it ever stops. Albert happened to be the youngest child of 4. His siblings were named Walter, Annie, and Edwin. He wanted to be called Albert after a dead sibling and so desperately wanted to shake the nickname Ham and Eggs that he acquired at an orphanage where he spent the bulk of his childhood.
Ham and eggs, ham and eggs. Shut up, I'm going to kill you.
Damn. I mean, that's a hard thing, right? Because, okay, I don't want to have any sympathy for this fucking guy, but, like, it all starts from a childhood. Like, when you're an innocent child and you're frequently bullied like that. Like, they didn't explain how he got the nickname Ham and Eggs, but no one wants to be called Ham and Eggs. No thanks, Sam.
I feel like there could be like worse nicknames than Ham and Egg.
When it comes to the Fish family, they had a history of some pretty unfortunate mental illnesses. He had an uncle that suffered from mania, a brother who was confined in a state mental hospital, and his sister Annie had been diagnosed with a mental affliction. There were 3 other relatives that are unnamed who also suffered from mental illness. His mother, Ellen, was said to have aural and visual hallucinations.
Huh.
She's just hearing and seeing things all the time.
It's some bad genetics.
Yeah. Now, with a family history including that much mental illness, it's hard to think that it wouldn't spread throughout the family, right? There's a saying that comes to mind about an apple in a tree here.
I'm shaking my head, yes.
Cleet is agreeing visually. Albert's father died of a heart attack on October 16th, 1875, and was buried on October 19th, 1875 in grave R96-89. They even gave us the grave number.
Oh, wow.
After his father passed, Albert's mother placed him into St. John's Orphanage in Washington.
But she got rid of him?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, right. Albert was consistently abused in this orphanage by the other children and the staff. So again, I've already mentioned like not showing empathy, but his dad dies. He's got a family of mental illness. His mom gives him up to an orphanage, and then he's consistently like abused and beaten by the facility. He had a terrible upbringing, to say the least. The twist here is that Albert would eventually come to enjoy the pain and anguish of being beaten, otherwise known as sadomasochism.
Oh.
Later in life, Fish would say, and I quote, "I was there till I was nearly 9, and that's where I got started wrong. We were unmercifully whipped. I saw boys doing many things they should not have done." In somewhat of a silver lining, Albert's mother eventually landed a job with the government in 1880 and was able to remove him from the orphanage and bring him back home. Now, I truly wish I could say that this was like
The end?
the end and things were fine and great and dandy. They could grow up as an upstanding citizen, turn his life around, but that's not the case because we wouldn't be talking about it if that was. This story is just beginning. Now, in 1882, when Albert was 12, he entered a relationship with a telegraph boy. This boy began to introduce Albert to practices such as urolagnia, which is drinking urine, and coprophagia, which is eating feces. So he gets in a relationship with this kid. He's like, drink your pee and eat your poop. It's fantastic. Albert then began visiting public bathhouses in order to watch other boys undress, sometimes spending the majority of his weekends there. Throughout his life, Albert would write horrible, obscene letters to women whose names he would acquire from dating agencies and advertising. Let's move into Albert's early adult life, where his criminal history begins. Albert moved to New York City in 1980. He claimed that this was the point he became a prostitute and would rape young boys. His mother went on to arrange a marriage between Fish and Anna Mary Hoffman in 1898. Good old arranged marriage.
I'm assuming he's going to settle down, become a normal person.
I wish.
He doesn't eat pee and poop.
He just gave up the poop and pee, and his wife started making homemade pot pies, and things were great. Nope. Anna Marie was 9 years younger than Albert, and during their marriage, they went on to have a total of 6 children named Albert, Anna, Gertrude, Eugene, John, and Henry Fish. So, just gets married and has 6 children. Again, I wish that was the end of it, but it's not. During the year 1898, Albert was employed as a house painter. He claimed that during this time, he continued to molest children, being mostly boys under the age of 6. Just disgusting. He recounted an incident where a male lover of his took him to a waxworks museum for a tour. This is where Fish became fascinated by a bisection of a penis, and after that point developed an obsession with sexual mutilation. I think I broke Cleet. He's just sitting here like, yeah, it's not a good story. In the year 1903, Fish was arrested for grand larceny and incarcerated in Sing Sing prison in New York.
Did he chop off his wiener?
No, not yet at least. After his release, Albert began working in Wilmington, Delaware, which is where he met Thomas Kedden in 1910. Kedden was 19 years of age. Albert invited him to where he was staying, and when they arrived, they began a sadomasochistic relationship. It's still not known today whether or not Kedden was forced into this or if he went into it willingly. However, during Fish's confessions, he described Kedden as intellectually disabled.
Oh, he That's so sad.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like it was willing. It was more of like he was coaxed into it, which is really, really sad. After roughly 10 days, Fish took Kedden to an abandoned farmhouse where he began to torture him. This torture would continue for a 2-week period. The torture ended with Fish cutting off half of Kedden's penis.
Ah, there it is.
He went on to say, "I shall never forget his scream or the look he gave me." The original plan, according to Fish, was to kill Kedden, cut his body into pieces, and take it home with him. He became nervous that he would draw attention to himself, so instead, he cleaned the wound with peroxide and wrapped it in a Vaseline-covered handkerchief. He then left Kedden a $10 bill and kissed him goodbye, leaving him behind. Because $10 makes up for 2 weeks and half your penis. He said, and I quote, "Took the first train I could get back home, never heard what became of him or tried to find out." Fish's wife left him in January of 1917 for John Straub, who was the family's handyman that lived with them. Ouch. I guess she took off with him because Fish was left alone to raise all 6 of his children. His wife had taken damn near every possession they had, leaving him dry. It was then he began to develop auditory hallucinations, much like his mother had had. He had once wrapped himself in a carpet, claiming he was following the instructions of John the Apostle. So we're now starting to see the rapid decline.
He seems like a sane person.
Totally sane. Shortly after that episode, Fish began his journey into self-harm. This started with him embedding needles into his groin and abdomen. When he was arrested, an x-ray revealed a total of 29 needles that had been lodged into his pelvic area.
That's going to be one of these episodes, guys.
It's not like the helium tank, but he also made a nail-covered paddle that he would beat himself with.
What if you just saw someone doing that?
I would call the police. Like,
you're
not
leave.
Okay. You're not okay.
I'm gonna cut my losses. I gotta go.
I mean, I wish I could say that was it, but if it's not enough, he would douse wool with lighter fluid, insert it into his anus, and light it on fire.
You know, it'd be like way worse if he dressed up as a clown when he did this.
Like Gacy?
Yeah.
You
You just hear honk honk. You're like, no, run!
Running around with a bum full of fire. Now there were some
Fire ass clown.
I call them clown ass. There were some concerns about him potentially beating his children after the discovery of his fascination with pain, but there was no evidence to support this. It was discovered, though, that he would encourage his kids and their friends to paddle him with the nail-studded club on his ass.
God, that's so weird.
Yeah, so he wouldn't hurt the kids, his own kids.
His kids would hurt him.
Yeah, he wouldn't hurt his own kids. Let's clarify that. But he would have his kids and their friends like, hey, see that paddle? Whip my butt with it. Like,
you see this big red shoe with spikes at the end?
Yeah.
Hit me.
So again, now it just escalates because it wasn't bad enough. Shortly after, Fish had developed a fascination with cannibalism.
Oh.
This began with preparing meals consisting of raw meat, which he had also served to his kids.
Ew.
That's just child abuse. This next bit is the escalation piece of the story. I know, it just keeps getting worse. I told you, it's not a good story. In 1919, Fish had stabbed an intellectually disabled boy in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. He said that he chose victims who were either intellectually disabled or African American, claiming that they wouldn't be missed when killed. Just extremely, extremely hateful person. He eventually paid boys to procure other children for him, cutting out a lot of the work for himself. Fish would torture and kill these young innocent children with what he called his implements of hell, which consisted of a meat cleaver, a butcher knife, and a small hand saw.
Oh, my God.
On July 11th, 1924, 8-year-old Beatrice Keel was playing alone on her parents' farm when Fish approached her. He offered her some money in exchange for her help in finding rhubarb. Show up to a kid and say, hey, I'll pay you to come hang out and let's go find some cool fruits. Yeah, like, kids are very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? And had it not been for her mom, who just rushed and chased him off the property, she wouldn't have been seen again.
Oh, my God.
Completely would have been
gone.
gone.
She's okay.
So he ran away, right? Fish, not being finished with the Keel family, returned to their home later that evening, meaning to sleep in the barn for the night, but was found by the father this time and again chased off the property. Now, if I had known that like he was trying to take my daughter before, I'd have shot him. I just killed him.
Yeah, burying him in the back.
Right. In the year 1924, when Fish was 54 years old and suffering from psychosis, he claimed that he was being commanded by God himself to torture and sexually mutilate children.
I wish he would have just stayed rolled in a carpet. God wants me to be carpet man.
I am carpet boy. Fear my carpet. Shortly after the Keel Farm incident, Fish came across 2 children playing on a sidewalk and asked them if they had already eaten lunch. Cyril Quinn was one of these children, and they had said that they hadn't eaten lunch quite yet. Fish then invited them into his apartment, offering to give them some sandwiches to eat. Unfortunately, they followed him inside, and he told them to play while he got the sandwiches ready. The kids began to wrestle on his bed when suddenly the mattress became dislodged. Under the mattress, they found his implements of hell and ran out of the apartment frightened. So they lived because they found his murder tools and left.
Ugh, lucky kids.
On February 6th, 1930, Albert remarried to Estella Wilcox in Waterloo, New York. This happy marriage only lasted a week before they were divorced.
Oh.
This guy just cannot stay married. In May of that same year, Fish was arrested for sending an obscene letter to a woman who answered his advertisement for a maid. He was sent to the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital shortly after for observation.
The end.
Nope.
Damn it.
Wishful thinking. On May 25th, 1928, Fish came across an ad in the New York World that read, "Young man, 18, wishes position in country. Edward Budd, 406 West 15th Street." On May 28th, 3 days later, a 58-year-old Albert Fish decided to pay the Budd family a visit. He arrived suggesting that he was going to hire Edward, but later would confess he was hoping to tie him up, mutilate him, and leave him to bleed to death. So he literally showed up just to hire him to fucking murder him. Fish used the alias of Frank Howard and said he was a farmer from Farmingdale, New York. A farmer from Farmingdale. Suspicious. He told Edward that he would hire him along with his friend Willie and would send for them in a few days when he was ready. When he failed to show up, he sent a telegram apologizing for the delay but promised another day.
Run, Willie, run.
Run. Free, Willie.
Free Willie. Yeah.
Fish finally returned to the Budd home where he met Edward's younger sister, Grace. Upon seeing her, he quickly switched his intended target and made up a story about having to attend his niece's birthday party. He asked if Grace would like to go with him, and he was successful in convincing her parents to allow her to accompany him.
Yeah, it's a different time.
Yep. Grace also had a younger sister named Beatrice, 2 older brothers named Edward and George, and a younger brother, Albert Budd II. Grace left her home with Fish that day and unfortunately never returned home again. The police went on to arrest Charles Edward Pope, who was a 66-year-old superintendent, on September 5th, 1930. He was a suspect in Grace's disappearance and was accused by his estranged wife. He went on to spend a total of 108 days in jail until his trial on December 22nd, 1930. He was found not guilty.
It's crazy they blame a guy even though another person took her away.
Yeah. Like,
kind of weird.
Yeah, I ran into him on the way to the birthday party. He snatched her up. I don't get it. It doesn't make fucking sense. There's a reason police work has improved.
Mm-hmm.
Grace's parents received an anonymous letter in November of 1934, which would lead police to Fish. Mrs. Budd had her son read it to her as she was illiterate, and it's a brutal letter. So I'm going to read the letter, but again, a forewarning, it's very graphic and disturbing. It's also full of grammatical errors, so if it sounds off, it's not because I don't know how to read. I'm literally reading it as it was written. So I'm going to go ahead and read the letter now.
Can't wait.
My dear Mrs. Budd, in 1894, a friend of mine shipped as a deckhand on the steamer Tacoma, Captain John Davis. They sailed from San Francisco to Hong Kong, China. On arriving there, he and 2 others went ashore and got drunk. When they returned, the boat was gone. At that time, there was a famine in China. Meat of any kind was from $1 to $3 a pound. So great was the suffering among the very poor that all children under 12 were sold to the butchers to be cut up and sold for food in order to keep others from starving. A boy or girl under 14 was not safe in the street. You could go in any shop and ask for steak, chops, or stew meat. Part of the naked body of a boy or girl would be brought out and just what you wanted cut from it. A boy or girl's behind, which is the sweetest part of the body and sold as veal cutlet, brought the highest price. John stayed there so long he acquired a taste for human flesh. On his return to New York, he stole 2 boys, one 7, one 11, took them to his home, stripped them naked, tied them in a closet, then burned everything they had on. Several times every day and night he spanked them, tortured them to make their meat good and tender. First, he killed the 11-year-old boy because he had the fattest ass and, of course, the most meat on it. Every part of his body was cooked and eaten except head, bones, and guts. He was roasted in the oven, boiled, broiled, fried, and stewed. The little boy was next, went the same way. At that time, I was living at 409 East 100th Street, rear right side. He told me so often how good human flesh was that I made up my mind to taste it. On Sunday, June the 3rd, 1928, I called on you at 406 West 15th Street, brought you pot cheese, strawberries. We had lunch. Grace sat in my lap and kissed me. I made up my mind to eat her on the pretense of taking her to a party. You said yes, she could go. I took her to an empty house in Westchester I had already picked out. When we got there, I told her to remain outside. She picked wild flowers. I went upstairs and stripped off all my clothes. I knew if I did not, I would get blood all over them. When all was ready, I went to the window and called her. Then I hid in the closet until she was in the room. When she saw me all naked, she began to cry and tried to run downstairs. I grabbed her, and she said she would tell her mama. First, I stripped her naked. How she did kick, bite, and scratch. I choked her to death, then cut her in small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms, cook, and eat it. It took me 9 days to eat her entire body. She died a virgin. I left a lot of it out. Not a lot of it. There's a couple sentences I just didn't want to read. It's just, again, it's extremely graphic. I know what I did read is not better, but so can you imagine just being a parent, your kid's like your kid is never seen again and you get that letter in the mail? That would be so damning to read. It's just not okay. The letter was obviously turned over to the police and they spent a long time studying it. There were some sections that couldn't be verified, such as the famine in Hong Kong or Captain Davis. The part they could verify, however, was the murder of Grace and the specific details regarding her kidnapping. It was impossible to verify whether he did in fact eat parts of Grace. Okay, so now they got that letter out of the way. The letter was delivered in an envelope displaying a hexagonal emblem with the letters NYPCBA, which represented the New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association. A janitor working for the company told police that he had taken some of the stationery home, but had left it at his rooming house at 200 East 52nd Street when he eventually moved out. The landlady responsible for the house told police that Fish had checked out of that room just a few days earlier. She also told them that Fish's son was sending him money, and he had asked her to hold his next check for him. The chief investigator on this case, William F. King, was waiting outside Fish's room until he returned. Fish agreed to go in for questioning, but quickly brandished a razor blade. King was able to disarm Fish and forcibly brought him into headquarters. You good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
It's a rough one, huh? When questioned about the murder of Grace Budd, Fish made no attempt to deny it. He explained that the original plan was to murder Edward and how he had moved on to Grace Budd after meeting her. Fish claimed that the thought of raping Grace never entered his mind originally, but when he was on top of her, strangling her to death, he had 2 involuntary ejaculations. They used this info during his trial, claiming that the kidnapping was in fact sexually motivated, avoiding any mention of cannibalism. Now that Fish has been captured, new crimes are being discovered and brought to light. The first that we will talk about is Francis Mcdonald. Francis was only 9 years of age and was reported missing by his parents on the night of July 14th, 1924. He was playing catch with some friends in the Port Richmond neighborhood of Staten Island. Once word got out that he was missing, search parties were formed and the area was thoroughly searched. His body was found hanging by a tree in a wooded area near his home. He had been sexually assaulted and strangled by his suspenders. An autopsy was performed, finding extensive lacerations to his legs and abdomen, and his left hamstring had been stripped almost entirely of flesh. At first, Fish denied responsibility, but would later claim he initially intended to castrate the young boy, but had to flee at the sound of someone approaching.
Did they kill him?
Who? Fish?
Fish.
Oh, we'll get there. Francis's friends were questioned as they were the last to see him alive. They told police that he was taken by an elderly man with a gray mustache. This identification was also reported by a neighbor who described seeing the boy with a similar-looking man going into the nearby woods. Francis's mother, Anna, had also reported seeing this man earlier in the day. She told reporters he came shuffling down the street, mumbling to himself and making queer motions with his hands. I saw his thick gray hair and his drooping gray mustache. Everything about him seemed faded and gray. This is where the infamous nickname the Gray Man came from. The Mcdonald case would remain unsolved until after the Grace Budd case was closed. Several witnesses in the area positively identified Fish as the mysterious man that had been lurking around the area the day Mcdonald went missing. As mentioned earlier, Fish denied killing Mcdonald until March 1935 when he was found guilty of the Budd murder. At this point, he admitted to killing and raping Francis Mcdonald. The confession was made public and Fish was given the reputation as the most vicious child slayer in human history. The next case is that involving Billy Gaffney. On February 11th, 1927, Billy Beaton, a 3-year-old boy, and his 12-year-old brother were playing in their apartment's hallway in Brooklyn with their friend Billy Gaffney, who was only 4 years old. The older brother had gone into the apartment, leaving the younger kids behind, which would prove to be a very big mistake. Both boys had disappeared without a trace. The younger brother, Billy Beaton, was found on the roof later on, and when asked what had happened to Gaffney, he claimed that the boogeyman had taken him away. Sadly, his body was never recovered. Fish wasn't the initial suspect in the case at the time, as the only suspect they had was a serial killer named Peter Kudzinowski. Shortly after, a man named Joseph Meehan, who was a motorman on a Brooklyn trolley, recognized a picture of Fish in the newspaper and positively identified him as the old man he saw on the day Gaffney was missing. He reported that the old man was trying to quiet down the little boy sitting next to him on the trolley, who was obviously very upset. The boy was without a jacket and had been crying for his mom. The old man was seen dragging him on and off the trolley, which raised a lot of suspicion. When they asked Billy Beaton the description of the boogeyman, surprise, surprise, it matched Fish. Detectives on the Manhattan Missing Persons Bureau were able to establish that Fish was employed as a house painter during the time, and he was working at a location only a few miles from where the boy was abducted that day. Fish wrote this letter to his attorney about the abduction. Again, it's very extremely vulgar and descriptive.
Can't wait.
So the letter reads, I brought him to the Riker Avenue dumps. There is a house that stands alone, not far from where I took him. I took the G boy there, meaning Gaffney, stripped him naked and tied his hands and feet and gagged him with the piece of dirty rag I took out of the dump. Then I burned his clothes, threw his shoes in the dump. Then I walked back and took trolley to 59th Street at 2 a.m. and walked home from there. Next day at about 2 p.m. I took tools, a good heavy cat of 9 tails, homemade, short handle, cut one of my belts in half, slit these half in 6 strips about 8 inches long. I whipped his bare behind till the blood ran from his legs. I cut off his ears, nose, slit his mouth from ear to ear, gouged out his eyes. He was dead then. I stuck the knife in his belly and held my mouth to his body and drank his blood. I picked up 4 old potato sacks and gathered a pile of stones. Then I cut him up. I had a grip with me. I put his nose, ears, and a few slices of his belly in the grip. Then I cut him through the middle of his body, just below his belly button, then through his legs about 2 inches below his behind. I put this in my grip with a lot of paper. I cut off the head, feet, arms, hands, and the legs below the knee. This I put in sacks weighted with stones, tied the ends, and threw them into the pools of slimy water you will see all along the road going to North Beach. Water is 3 to 4 feet deep. They sank it once. I came home with my meat. I made a stew out of his ears, nose, pieces of his face and belly. I put onions, carrots, turnip, celery, salt, and pepper. It was good. Then I put strips of bacon on each cheek of his behind and put it in the oven. Then I picked 4 onions, and when meat had roasted about a fourth of an hour, I poured about a pint of water over it for gravy and put in the onions. At frequent intervals, I basted the behind with a wooden spoon so the meat would be nice and juicy. In about 2 hours, it was nice and brown, cooked through. I never ate any roast turkey that tasted half as good. I ate every bit of the meat in about 4 days. I ate most of him and threw the rest in the toilet.
The fuck?
Yeah. So those are the only 2 letters we're going to read. So again, I know I did say trigger warning. I wasn't kidding in that aspect there. So Gaffney's mother eventually visited Fish in Sing Sing, accompanied by Detective King and some more guards. She had gone to ask him about her son's death to get the truth directly from him. He refused to speak to her and eventually started to cry, begging to be left alone. After 2 long hours of questioning Fish through his lawyer, James Dempsey, she gave up hope and was unconvinced that Fish was the true killer of her son. So she didn't believe that he did it.
Yeah.
Let's now discuss Fish's trial and execution, the part that we have all
Kill
been
him.
waiting for. The trial for the murder of Grace Budd began on March 11th, 1935 in White Plains, New York, with Frederick P. Close as judge. The trial lasted a total of 10 days, with Fish pleading insanity. As mentioned earlier, he claimed to hear the voice of God telling him to kill the children. Several psychiatrists who were present at the trial testified about Fish's numerous sexual fetishes. You ready for a long list here, Cleet?
Oh, God.
These included sadism, masochism, flagellation, exhibitionism, voyeurism, piquerism, cannibalism, coprophagia, urophilia, hematologia, pedophilia, necrophilia, and infibulation. James Dempsey, Fish's defense counsel, noted that Fish was called a psychiatric phenomenon, as that nowhere in legal or medical records was there another individual who possessed so many sexual abnormalities. Just a disgusting man all around.
A real weirdo.
One key player in the trial was Frederick Wortham, who was a psychiatrist with an emphasis on child development. After 2 days of testimony, Wortham drove into Fish's obsession with religion, specifically the preoccupation with the story of Abraham and Isaac. Wortham would go on to say that Fish was under the impression that sacrificing a boy would be penance for his own sins, and that even though the act itself was wrong, the angels would have prevented it if God didn't agree.
That makes sense.
Super warped. Fish's first attempt at the sacrifice was disturbed by an approaching car. The second attempt was for Edward Budd, but later switched to his younger sister Grace, who he may have perceived as a boy. Wortham then moved on to the cannibalism aspect of his obsessions and linked it to communion, which is like the Christian sacrament, if I understand it correctly. Dempsey, Fish's defense counsel, asked Wortham a very lengthy 15,000-word question detailing Fish's life and ending with him asking how the doctor perceived Fish's mental state. All Wortham had to say was, he is insane. 15,000-word question. It's like, yeah, he is insane. When asked the question on whether he felt Fish knew the difference between right and wrong, he responded that he did know the difference, but it was a perverted knowledge based on his own opinions of religion, sin, and atonement. 2 more psychiatrists had to be called in to confirm Wortham's conclusion. Believe it or not, there were some rebuttals. The first came from Means Gregory, who was the former manager of Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital, where Fish was held and treated in 1930. Gregory said that he believed that Fish was definitely abnormal, but sane. He was asked if he thought coprophilia, urophilia, and pedophilia could classify a sane person, to which Gregory responded that such a person was not mentally sick, and these were common perversions that were socially perfectly all right, and Fish was no different than millions of other people. Yeah, someone's saying like, they're just normal. Some of which were very prominent and successful, he added. Like, that just makes it okay. The next rebuttal came from Perry Lichtenstein, who was a resident physician at the Tombs, which is a Manhattan detention complex. He was asked if Fish causing himself pain indicated a mental condition, to which Lichtenstein replied, that is not masochism. He was only punishing himself to get sexual gratification. The next rebuttal came from Charles Lambert, who testified that coprophilia, again eating poop, was a common practice and cannibalism may be psychotic, but was a matter of taste and not evidence of psychosis.
He
Really?
just likes the poop.
He likes the poop. The final rebuttal came from James Vavasseur, who repeated Lambert's thoughts. Another defense witness was Fish's 17-year-old stepdaughter named Mary Nicholas. She would tell the jury how Fish taught her and her siblings several games involving overtones of masochism and child molestation. So he's teaching his kids these fucked up ways. After all of that, none of the jurors had any doubts in their minds that Fish was insane and felt that he should be executed. They found him to be sane and guilty, and the judge ordered the death sentence.
Electric chair.
Fish arrived at prison in March of 1935 and was executed on January 16th, 1936 in the electric chair at Sing Sing.
Yeah.
Sweet, sweet ending. At 11:06 p.m., he entered the chamber and was pronounced dead only a short 3 minutes later. He was later buried in Sing Sing Cemetery. A crazy story is that Fish was said to have helped the executioner properly position the electrodes on his own body. Reportedly, his last words were, and I quote, "I don't even know why I'm here." One witness that was present claimed that it only took 2 jolts before Fish died. This sparked the rumor that the apparatus short-circuited due to the needles lodged in Fish's pelvic area. These rumors were debunked as Fish died in the same fashion and time frame as others in the chair had previously died. After the execution, a meeting was held with reporters and Fish's lawyer, James Dempsey. Dempsey told reporters that he was in possession of his client's final statement. Obviously, reporters were all over this, asking for it to be released to the public. The statement was several pages of handwritten notes that he had jotted down just a few short hours before his death. Dempsey refused to release the statement, saying, "I will never show it to anyone. It was the most filthy string of obscenities that I have ever read in my life." Normally, I'd be really curious as to what this would say, because it's like the world's biggest cliffhanger, but the previous 2 notes, I don't ever want to know what this thing was written. So
Yeah, I'm good.
anyway, so that finally wraps up Albert Fish. Again, I apologize for the very gruesome details, but I think we can all agree that wherever he's at now in hell, I hope he's enduring a lifetime of pain and anguish.
That fish stunk. All right, let's ease up this shitty feeling I have.
Yeah.
So this one, I actually found this one kind of funny. So again, true or false? I was in a crappy motel. The room had bed bugs, and I was too exhausted to go to the front desk. I just needed to make it until morning. I slept in the tub. Hours later, I hear someone breaking through the window. I had a big knife with me. This is a knife.
That's not a knife.
This is a knife.
This is a knife.
And
You bust out like a machete.
and
I
I
was
ran.
messing with you. You have a machete.
I got a fucking machete. And I ran out into the room and find a man halfway through my window. We stared for a while at each other in shock. I think we were scared. Then he says, "Is this your room?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is my room." More staring.
This is true. It's gotta be.
Then he slowly starts backing out while cursing me for leaving my window unlocked and not expecting him to break in.
You leave a window open, you expect me not to crawl in?
You son of a bitch.
What are
I
you,
thought I had a
some kind of
goddamn room,
asshole?
you son of a jerk.
Son of a fucking takes a sip of his brown bag of liquor.
True or false, man?
That's true. It's gotta be true.
I feel like it's false. It's too funny. It's like the funniest thing I've ever fucking heard.
I think it's true.
It's like, oh, it's my fault.
Oh.
It's my fault.
Oh, I like to sleep with a gentle breeze blowing past my face, not a man jumping through the window. I'm the weird one. Get out of here. It's true.
All right, I'm going to do one last one.
Let's do it.
All right, so my preschool teacher, who also ended up somehow changing jobs and becoming my 11th grade English teacher, had a super interesting life. Her mother had some super famous book. Her father worked high up in the government, but enough about her family. First, let me describe her to you.
Enough about her family. We've talked enough about her family.
Yeah, her family. Lame. Let's
My
get into
family,
this
though.
story. She ate poop and pee. I'm kidding.
Oh my God. She drove a school bus full of teenagers.
They disappeared. I never saw them again. Whole senior class is still missing. She had dark hair and blue eyes. You'll see why this matters in a minute. She told this story every single year to the new students in her class. When she was younger, she was driving through Arizona on a two-way road while her boyfriend at the time was following behind her on his motorcycle. For those who don't live in Arizona, certain stretches of it can be quite isolated and deserted.
Only in Arizona. No other state has isolated roads. Like, really?
Nope, Utah's all city. It's one big city here.
I hate stories that are like this descriptive. Like, they had this, and it's important later, I promise. Like, just get to the fucking point.
Man, you are
Anyway,
angry.
I'm in a bad mood because of fucking Albert Fish.
Jesus.
You ruined my whole life.
She said something smelled fishy. Okay, all right. She said they were on a long drive. It's been about 6 years since I was in her class, so details are fuzzy. But basically, her and her boyfriend both knew the destination where they were heading by memory and eventually got separated by a few miles. A man who had been behind her in a Volkswagen Beetle kept pulling up beside her in the other lane. No one was coming, and the person in the VW was motioning at her to pull over. She somewhat ignored him the first few times, but he kept doing it and began getting more frantic each time. She said that she believed that he spotted something wrong with her car, So she saw a parking lot off the road of a deserted gas station and pulled over. Once pulled over, she said she instantly got an eerie feeling.
Yeah, I wonder why.
The man was suspicious and kept telling her that he saw something wrong with her headlight and insisted she got out of the car so he could show her what he meant.
Ma'am, do you want to come step on out here? Let me show you what I mean by your headlights being all janky.
Just get out of your car real quick.
Never mind
I'm
my
gonna
knife.
show you what's wrong with them. Her boyfriend, who was a few miles behind her, eventually caught up and spotted her car at a sketchy gas station. Right as she was out of her car, her boyfriend began to pull in. As she did that, the man got into his car and sped off like his life depended on it. They later were able to identify that man as Ted Bundy. She
Whoa.
said, right? She said she could not imagine what would have happened to her if her boyfriend had been even another 3 miles behind her on the road.
True.
Dun-dun-dun.
Dun-dun. It's true. It's got to be true. Ted Bundy was a creepy mofo.
She sound like just making it up. She's being a...
Not that this is what I wanted to talk about earlier too, but Murder Among the Mormons, we just started watching that. That shit's nuts.
I actually did watch that. It was good.
If you want a good crime show on Netflix, Murder Among the Mormons, it takes place right here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
The Mormons.
Back in the Mormons. All right. Well, I think we had a pretty good shit sandwich this episode. We had some fun, some total trash, man, and then some more fun.
I'm glad Albert's dead.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad he's dead as well. I think
I'd take a shit on his grave, but I think he might like it.
He would just eat it. It would just dissolve into the tombstone. Oh, God. What have we become? All right, folks. Well, thank you again for tuning in. We always appreciate it. If you have any suggestions of topics or stories you want us to tell, send us your suggestions at entertheabysspod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from each and every one of you.
As always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.